Hi there friends, I'm Sam, a ratologist, and what that means is I really like rats. Or more specifically, I really like rat-human hybrids. Just don't spend too long thinking about where they came from. Anyway, because of that, whenever I play a fantasy game, I love to have the opportunity to play as a ratfolk, or at the very least, get to kill them. So, when I play Dungeons and Dragons, there's something that really disappoints me. And that's that I can't live out the twisted male power fantasy of living in the sewers and being a stinky rat boy. So, in this week's episode of Dungeon Brews, inspired by this week's release of Warhammer Total War 3, I'm going to be showing you how you can make the stinkiest, filthiest, flea-infested vermin to put in the sewers and dungeons of your Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition campaign. There are lots of ways that you can go about making ratfolk in D&D. You might just re-skin a goblin. This is sacrilegious and deserves nothing but disdain. There is only one way to recreate the glory of the Ratman, and that is to look at the greatest rat civilization in history. That which is depicted in the end times, the Skaven. The first step in introducing these creatures into D&D is to ask the question, what makes a Skaven a Skaven? If you are not up to date with your Warhammer lore, frankly I expected more from you, but I'm going to give you a really quick rundown. So, how can we boil down this lore-rich race of individuals into something that fits on one side of A4? There's a really easy and consistent way to go about building races. What you try to do is balance whatever you're creating as providing a benefit of roughly 4 or 5 skill points. Of course, a bonus skill point is worth +1 on this scale. A feat might be worth anything between 0.5 and 2. For example, Dark Vision, probably 0.5, everyone's got it. But if you had the opportunity to have advantage on death saving throws, like the greatest race currently in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, the Reborn, it's probably a +2. That's going to really benefit your character. Now, what you might be thinking at this point is, well, then you potentially could only have a couple of feats and 1 bonus skill point. Well, you can also have negative feats or features, which will reduce your total down and allow you to balance out creatures and races more consistently and effectively. The first thing I would focus on is where we're going to allot bonus skill points. In Skaven culture, the strongest and sneakiest are the most likely to survive in their underground burrows. So that is key skills sorted, +2 to dexterity and +1 to a skill of your choice. As I just mentioned, they live in burrows underground, and because we're playing D&D, inevitably they're going to need dark vision at least until the Great Ascendancy, when they rise up and retake the earth or cause the moon to plummet down, something to that effect. And then inside those burrows they're going to need to be able to communicate to each other, so we're going to allow them to speak common and beast speech. If you've ever played Total War Warhammer 1 or 2, you'll know that the Skaven as a faction are played by using melee troops as meat shields in order to cover for their artillery, and resultantly the easiest way to reflect that is either by making the Skaven feel less of a necessity to care for their own individual well-being, or to just straight up make them less meaty. So what I'd go for here is to reduce the Skaven's constitution by -1, but this does need some way of being counteracted, and I think that the best way to do that is by leaning into the fact that as well as being meat shields, the Skaven are incredibly stealthy and really sneaky. So once per long rest, we're going to give our ratfolk the ability to surprise an enemy which they are aware of. What that means is that the Skaven will have the opportunity to have a free turn at the top of combat once per long rest. To top them off to about 5 points, we will give them the chance that whenever they surprise an enemy, they have advantage on their first attack. Whether that's surprising them using that ability we just mentioned, or surprising them by sneaking up on them stealthily. And then finally, to complement the playstyle that comes with being a ratfolk and to make sure that no one has to see a naked ratfolk, we're also going to give them proficiency with light armor and simple and martial weapons. And that, my friends, is how you quickly homebrew up a Ratfolk race for D&D 5th edition. Why not go ahead and add one to the pile of characters you're never going to get to play?